Welcome back, my dear students and my dear learners. Let us look at the second stanza of To Autumn, one of the most beautiful odes written by John Keats in the year 1819 and published 1820, along with Lamia, the Eve of St. Agnes, and so many other masterpieces by this great poet. Let's look at this second stanza and try to understand it line by line. Who hath means has, not seen thee oft means often, amid in the middle, thy means your. Actually, my dear learners, remember one thing, that John Keats was very much fond of those words actually used in the medieval age. Why? Because generally John Keats loved to set the background, or loved to set his poem in the medieval age, and that's why you must have noticed that he generally uses such words which are no longer the part of standard English language today, like thy. Thy is the word that actually used for women in the medieval age, like oft. Oft is no longer in use today. Oft, at present, we use often instead of oft, like hath, H-A-T-H, hath, instead of has or have. He was fond of making use of such words which were in used in the medieval age. Why? Because I told you that the setting of his poem was generally medieval time. He was fond of making use of such words. Why? Because he actually wanted to give a kind of a taste and flavor to his own masterpieces. So here he is deliberately making use of such words. Why? Because the setting of the poem is that time. Not that time he was actually writing in the 19th century. So see, he says, who hath means who has not seen thee. Thee, my dear learner, dear students, thee here stands for what? Stands for autumn. See how the poet has here been imagining autumn. Remember, my dear learner, here autumn has been personified as a woman. Remember, and that's why here he is using the word thee. Particularly, thee was used in the medieval time, particularly for female, and thy as a possessive adjective for women. Now, your is used for one and all, male and female. You is used for male and female, but in the olden time, in the medieval English, thee was particularly used for women, and thy also used as possessive adjective, particularly for women. So he says, who has not seen thee means you, oft means often, amid in the middle of, thy store means thy bounty. Store means the place where the grains, different kinds of grains are collected. The place where the grains are collected is store. So he says, here he is trying to visualize. See, here the poet is making use of visual imagery. Why? Because here he is personifying autumn as a goddess or as a woman sitting in a very relaxed or in a very careless manner on the floor of the grain. He says, see, that who has not seen thee means you often amid in the middle, thy store means thy store of grains. Sometimes, whosoever, any person, whoever means anyone, seeks means just looks for abroad, foreign land, or going somewhere else, may find. So he says, sometimes if a person, any person was or just going somewhere else, moving out of his own town or moving out of his own place or village or country and going somewhere else can see you, he says, seeks abroad may find may see thee means you means autumn, sitting careless in a very comfortable manner, in a very casual manner on the granary floor, that very particular place with the grain collected there, sitting in a very careless manner. Thy hair soft, lifted by the winnowing wind. Which kind of a wind? That very particular wind, my dear learner, which helps the farmers, particularly for separating the grains from the chaff. Chaff is that very particular part of the crop or the plant that is not used for eating, and grain is that very particular part of the plant, this crop plant that is used particularly for eating. So he says, how can one identify that the autumn has set in? How can one recognize, how can one understand that the autumn season has set in or started? If one sees a woman with her long hair sitting on the floor where the grains are collected, and her long soft hair is uplifted or separated or ruffled because of that soft, sweet, just helpful wind that helps actually the farmers or the farmers, particularly for separating the grain from the chaff. One can at once understand, or one should at once understand or realize that which season is going on or which season has set in autumn. See, thy hair soft, lifted by the winnowing of the wind. So see, in the first four lines of the poem, here he simply puts the just or places the subject or the theme of this second stanza. Here he wants to tell us, or he wants to tell his readers, how can his readers understand or recognize that the autumn has set in if they see just the women, actually those women who actually just harvest the ready crop, and after harvesting the ready crop they collect the grains at a particular place that is called granary, and they wait for the favorable wind to blow in order to separate the grain particularly from the chaff. If one sees, if one person sees a woman, or just a woman just working as a harvester or working as a just a laborer, particularly for cutting the crops, gathering the grains and separating the grains particularly from the chaff with the help of the favorable wind. The readers and one and all at once should understand that the autumn is set in. So see how beautifully here the poet has personified the just autumn season and giving us ample ample facts and ample ample pieces of information, particularly to recognize the autumn season. Why? Because actually autumn season is the season of what? Mellow fruitfulness. Autumn season is actually the season of harvesting. People or the farmers harvest their crop in autumn season. Means autumn season is just in the middle of, or the autumn season actually does last in between September to October, or the November, and at that time farmers could be seen cutting their crops, reaping their crops, collecting their grains at a particular place, and sitting, women, just laborers of the farmers, could be seen sitting there on their on the floor of their grains with their long hair uplifted by the wind. That wind helps them actually separating the grain from the chaff. So if one sees all these kind of activities, all these kind of agricultural activities, one does not need to have any kind of a doubt, and one at once needs to understand that autumn season is going on, or the autumn season is on its peak, and very soon autumn season is going to actually transit, or going to end, and giving way particularly for the winter to begin. So he says, if such kind of a things one sees, or one can see, it means one does not have any reason to be in doubt that whether this is this season or that season. One needs to at once understand that the autumn is going on. This is the first. Now he says, now he's elaborating that how can one identify or recognize the autumn season. He says, or on a half reaped means cut. Furrow means that very particular track or row of a certain certain actually plants, actually certain grain plants. Sound asleep. Drowsed means just fell asleep. Drowsed means fell asleep with the fume. Fume means that a strong, just a gas or the vapor of the certain fragrance. Fragrance of poppies. Poppy is a name of a plant, and from the seeds of, or the seed that is obtained from this plant poppy, what is made? Opium, an intoxicant kind of a thing is made. While thy hook. So see here, I told you this, or I have already told you, but again I'm telling you that here the poet is actually imagining just autumn as a laborer or as a reaper. That how can one just recognize that the autumn has set in? If one sees a reaper means the farmer who cuts just a ready crop is called reaper. So if one sees a farmer, particularly here he is imagining, remember this, here he is imagining or personifying autumn as a woman. So here he imagines a woman reaper just reaping her harvest, that very particular crop that is grown in a that is grown in a just in a line, and that very particular reaper is cutting straightway the crop grown in a particular line. But how that reaper has missed a certain line of the crop to be cut. Why? Because this very particular just a woman reaper, all right, has inhaled the strong fragrance of the flower of the poppy plant, and it's all because of that this reaper has fallen in a kind of a sleep, or fallen asleep. And it's all because of that reaper could be seen lying asleep with its scythe, that agricultural cutting tool, just cast aside. See this. Or an a half reaped, half cut, not completely cut furrow, a particular just a row of the crop, sound asleep. Why? Because the reaper has fallen asleep. And why? Drowsed means fallen asleep. Why? Because of the strong, just intoxicating, just a vapor or the smell of the poppy flower. While thy hook, and since the reaper has fallen asleep because of the strong, intoxicating, just the smell of this plant, what has happened? Its hook, the hook of the reaper means the farmer. Hook means scythe, that tool the farmer used particularly for cutting the crop. The hook means the scythe could be seen lying just lying just away, or lying a little bit away from the just a reaper. See, spares means misses. The next swath, I told you that with swath or the furrow, same swath or furrow means a kind of a line. It means you can understand, here we can understand that the people in London, or the farmers in the villages of England actually just grew their crops in a particular kind of a line. In a very disciplined manner they grew their crop, and one farmer could be seen cutting one particular furrow, one particular line in a very careful or in a very steady manner. But what happened? These just crop or the grain plants had poppy creepers, or had a poppy just plants, and sometime while cutting, the smell of the poppy plant or smell of the flower of the poppy was so strong, particularly on a reaper, that reaper fell asleep. And when the reaper fell asleep, what happened? His or her tool, that cutting tool, that is scythe, could be seen lying away from that reaper. So if an onlooker sees such kind of a thing, sees such kind of a happening, or sees such kind of the happening of such activities like the cutting of the crops, grain just lying at a particular place in pile. If one person sees such kind of activities going all around, it means for sure one at once needs to understand that which season is going on, autumn is going on. So he says aroused. This, I think, my dear learner, this line is clear to you. And sometimes like a gleaner is that, you can say, farmer, or that poor farmer, you can say that, who can be seen collecting or picking or gathering gathering the grains, or just gathering the grain after the harvesting, or after the yes, after the harvesting, or after the collection of the grain. So he says, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden, means loaded head, across a brook. Brook is a kind of a waterfall or a river. So he says that one could see, first of all he imagines, or first of all he personifies just autumn as a woman sitting on the floor of a grain, and her hair is uplifted or ruffled just by the soft wind, that favorable wind that helps a farmer to separate the grain, particularly from the chaff. Now he just imagine or personifies or paints, you can say he paints or pictures autumn as a reaper reaping a particular line of the crop, and while reaping, that farmer gets the intoxicating smell of poppy flower. The smell is so strong on him or her that he loses, or she loses, her consciousness and slips into a kind of a sleep with his or her tool cast away. And then third time, now he imagines or paints or draws a portrait of autumn as a gleaner, as a poor farmer who could be seen collecting the leftover grain or the leftover stalks of grain lying here and there after the harvest is done. See this. Steady, and after collecting the leftover stalks of the grain, what does that very particular poor farmer just do? He or she bundles all the stalks of the grain plants and balances on her head, and that just a poor farmer could be seen crossing the river in a very careful manner with the bundle of the grain on her own head. So if one sees such kind of a happening, such kind of agricultural just activities going on everywhere in the villages or in the countryside of England, one does not need to have any doubt to recognize that it is none other than only one season, that is autumn season. So see this. Or by a cider, my dear learner, see again here John Keats has made use of obsolete word, obsolete, probably is the spelling of obsolete. Obsolete means archaic, 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 or out of date words which are no longer the part of the standard English language is called archaic or obsolete or out of date, like hath, like thee, like thy. And here see again thee, here see, and here see what? Cider. Actually, cider means, my dear learner, a kind of a apple fermented juice. Apple fermented juice. Cider means. The correct, at present, the standard spelling of this word is C-I-D-E-R. But Here he uses that word with that spelling, actually was used in the medieval age, particularly to give the taste and color, and you can say this a kind of aroma to his own just a poem of that time or of the medieval time. So he says, or by a cider press, that very particular kind of a machine that was used, or that was, yes, that was used at that time, particularly for getting the juice of the apple out with the patient means in a very relaxed and in a very satisfied, yes, in a very relaxed manner, patient looks. So he says either the autumn could be seen as a woman just sitting on the floor of the grain, or as a reaper, or as a gleaner collecting the grains left behind, or as a farmer with his or her own eyes fixed on that very particular juicer, that very particular machine, out of which the juice of the apple comes out, and comes out in a drop, See this. Or by a cider press with the patient look, thou watchest means sees the, again thou, you see, thou here see. So see here, try to understand, my dear learner, here the just autumn is personified as a male, but till now here in the first two lines or the three lines, the autumn is personified as a woman. Then again, see this, here again thy is used. It means here again the autumn is also personified as a reaper, as a woman reaper. But now here thou, actually thou word was used, my dear learners, particularly for the male instead of you. Here thou means you, thou used for what? Male, and thee used for actually woman, and thy used for women. So see, here he imagines or personifies, or here he paints or draws the portrait, draws the picture of autumn as a farmer, as a male farmer, as a farmer whose eyes are actually fixed on that very particular machine that is oozing out, that is pressing out the juice of the apple, and the juice of the apple is coming down or dripping down into a certain pot or vessel in drops. And the eyes of the farmer is actually, my dear learner, fixed on that very particular juice, dripping out of that juicer into a vessel. He says, see, thou watchest the last oozing. Oozing means coming in drops. Oozing means coming in drops, hours by hours, time by time. So he says that if one sees rapid activities, rapid agricultural activities, like one sees a woman, you can say farmer, or woman laborer sitting on the floor of the grain, and her long hair is uplifted by the wind. That wind helps the farmer to separate the grain from the chaff. One need to at once understand that which season is going on. Autumn season is going on. If one sees a woman reaper cutting the crop, and while cutting get the strong intoxicating just a fume, or the just a vapor of the just poppy flower, what happened, loses consciousness and slips into arm of sleep with her tool just thrown far away or just close to her. If one sees a farmer, poor farmer, means serf, a kind of a poor laborer, collecting the grains left behind after the harvesting, or after the harvest is done, and making a bundle of those left over, actually just stalks of the just grain plants, and balancing that just a bundle on the head and crossing the river. And if one sees a male farmer with his own eyes fixed on that very particular apple juicer that allows the juice to come and drop, and if such kind of things are seen, or such kind of things are noticed happening everywhere in the village or the countryside of England, one has thousand reason to understand that it is autumn season that is just on its peak, and very soon it is going to give way to the winter, and the winter will come and put an end to those mature flowers and fruits and everything, my dear learners. So my dear learner, this was the explanation of the second stanza of the poem. Now let's look at the figure of speech used in this very particular poem. See, in the first stanza, better you can understand that the autumn is personified as a woman farmer, or as a woman. It means personification is used in the first line of the poem, because he says, who hath not seen thee? And second thing, see this. First thing, this stanza is also addressed to the autumn. It means he says, thee, who has not seen you? Who has not seen you? It means here the poet is directly addressing his words to the autumn by personifying it as a woman. It means, since he is addressing his words to the autumn, it means apostrophe. Since the autumn is personified as a woman reaper, or as a woman, just a farmer sitting on the floor of the grain, it means personification. So in the first line of the poem, apostrophe and personification is used. See the next line, or the next, you see this, one, see this, thee begins with T, thy begin with T. It means two words begin with T. It means sound of T at the beginning of two words means alliteration. Alliteration is also used. So see, in the first line, personification, first line apostrophe, first line alliteration. In the first line, three figures of speech used. Now see the next line. Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find. So seeks times, seeks abroad may find. See this. The sitting careless on a granary floor. So see, no doubt again that the sitting careless on a granary floor. So here again the autumn is, since throughout the poem the autumn is personified. So again personification is why, because he personifies, imagines autumn as a woman sitting in a very careless manner on a granary floor. Sitting there, see, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing, when, see, hear this repetition of I sound, lifted, winnowing, wind means repetition of I sound. It means assonance or on a half reaped furrow, sound asleep. Throughout the poem, personification is on and on, drowsed with the fume of poppies while thy hook, clear, spares the next, this is the, my dear learners, the next, swath and all its, all its twined flowers, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy loaded head across a brook or by a cider press with patient look. So how can look be patient? So see here this, a person can be patient, look cannot be patient. It means misapplication of adjective. It means transferred epithet is used here, my dear learners. Thou watchest the last oozing hours by hours. So my dear learners, I hope all these figures of speech absolutely clear to you, and above all these figures of speech, most important figure of speech used in this very particular poem is imagery. And which imagery? Visual imagery. Because see, how does the poet imagine the autumn as a woman, as a gleaner, as a farmer with his own eyes fixed on the cider press. So the most important, or the poem is very rich in what? Very rich in visual imagery, and also very rich in the smell imagery. See here, smell imagery, the fume of poppies, that the smell of the flower of the poppy is so strong that what has happened to the farmer? The farmer has probably lost control over her head, over her body. Actually, the head or the brain of the farmer has lost control over the body and has fallen asleep. So here, which imagery is used? Smell imagery is used. So my dear learner, this is all, or these are the figures of speech used in the second stanza of this poem. That's it in this video, my dear learners.